Have you ever imagined what it would feel like to live for almost 1,000 years? That's enough time for you to discover all the mysteries of nature, gather endless wisdom, and witness the course of all history unfold right before your very eye. This isn't science fiction. This is the real reality of the earliest humans. They were beings directly created by God. According to the Bible, Adam lived for 930 years, while Methuselah reached 969. An entire civilization flourished under such long lifespans, which now seem impossible to happen. But why is that? Because a major change happened. In Genesis 6:3, we can read one of God's most mysterious statements. Now the Lord said, I will not allow man to live long because they are only human. So from now on, man will live no more than 120 years. And this is the decision that completely changed the course of human life. But why did God do this? What happened and what made the Creator decide to change the very limit of our existence? In this video, we will examine the secret behind this decision of God. And why did He set a new destiny for mankind? But before we continue, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. This is a big help for us content creators. Thank you very much, and now, let's get started. When we think of Adam, we often imagine a primitive man, innocent, and seemingly walking in a new world. But according to the scriptures, that's far from the truth. Adam was directly shaped by God, created with a perfect mind and abilities far greater than any genius who has ever lived. He was not a caveman. He was the first scientist, the foundation of knowledge that he would later pass on to the next generations. During his 930 years of life, he had enough time to study, understand, and organize all aspects of creation, things that we cannot achieve in the short span of our own lives. According to the Bible, God brought all the animals to Adam so that he could name them. But according to the Hebrew meaning, naming is more than just giving a label. It also means understanding the true nature of each one. In short, Adam was the first to study life, the first to classify species, and the first to discover the design of nature created by God. Every plant, every animal, every element of the world all became an open book in his mind, and his wisdom deepened even more when the first genetic procedure in history happened, the creation of Eve from his rib. When he woke up, he immediately said, "This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh." This is not just a romantic statement, but also a lesson about the similarity of human flesh and blood. As the centuries passed, Adam passed on all this knowledge to his children and grandchildren. He lived to witness 8 generations, and in every generation, he shared profound wisdom about nature, long life, and the laws of God. What he said was, it was like opening a secret book of creation, and that knowledge continued to grow. It became the foundation of the first civilization, a culture with science and technology that may have been even more advanced than what we imagine today. When Adam passed away at the age of 930 years, it wasn't just a person who was lost, but a living library that was completely lost to the world. But the seeds of knowledge he left behind continued to grow among his descendants until a powerful civilization emerged, a super civilization that flourished between Adam and Noah, a world driven by long life, profound wisdom, and the direct presence of God. The world where Adam and the first people lived was not just any civilization. It was not the Stone Age or a time of simple living. This was the golden age of science, wisdom, and technology, a period in history that was possibly even more advanced than anything humanity has achieved today. Think about this. Adam lived for 930 years, Seth for 912, Enosh for 905, Cainan for 910, Mahalalel for 895, Jared for 962, Enoch for 365, before he was taken by God Methuselah for 969, Lamech for 777, and Noah for 950 years Imagine these people living at the same time. Each one is like a living university carrying hundreds of years of knowledge and experience. Every conversation with them is like a combination of geniuses. Conversations about nature, technology, and the laws of life that they themselves have witnessed. Each patriarchy is like a biological supercomputer. They have the ability to process and store information that ordinary people today can't even reach. And beyond that, knowledge isn't just something that can be simply passed on. What Adam learned was taught to Seth, which was then expanded and improved by Enoch, later added to by Kenan, and it continued to grow with each generation. In just a few centuries, this civilization may have reached a high level of technology and science. It would take humanity thousands of years before it could be rediscovered. Genesis chapter 4 gives us some hints about this. According to the Bible, the descendants of Cain were city builders, inventors of music, and blacksmiths of bronze and iron. But that might just be the outward part of their intelligence. Through hundreds of years of experimentation and study, they probably developed techniques and inventions that would still surprise even modern engineers and scientists today. Building cities is not just about piling up stones. This includes urban planning, water systems, advanced architecture, and an efficient government capable of managing a large population. But behind this wisdom, danger slowly emerged. The same knowledge that can be used for good can also be used for evil. The long life that was once a symbol of blessing became a way for evil to take root and for people to turn away from God. People with hundreds of years of experience also had enough time to develop evil, teach it to others, and spread the destruction of morality. The former blessing of long life gradually became a threat to God's divine plan. Amid all this, one man stood up and became his era's prophet. Not just because of the length of his life, but because in his very name, God's message for the world was hidden. This was Methuselah, the man who lived for 969 years, the longest-lived person in human history. But more than just the record of his age, Methuselah was a living prophecy. His very name in Hebrew has a deep meaning. Only a few understand. He was born to serve as God's timekeeper, a divine countdown, before the harshest judgment in history arrived, the Great Flood. According to theologians, his name could mean, when he dies, judgment will come. So as long as he was alive, the world was still being given a chance. A long patience from God before the end. Methuselah's father was Enoch, the man who walked with God and was taken without experiencing death. And when Enoch named his son Methuselah, he didn't just choose a name, but he passed on a message from heaven. A prophecy about the fate of mankind. God showed Enoch a revelation that could shake the whole world. Judgment would come, but not yet. There was a time of grace, a long period of God's patience. And that period would be measured by the lifespan of Methuselah. Every year that he lived was another year of mercy, another chance for humanity to return to God. It's as if the Creator himself set a 969-year countdown, the final breath of grace, before the coming judgment. For almost 1,000 years, Methuselah was a living warning. Everyone around him knew the meaning of his name. A silent but clear message. When he dies, judgment will come. Imagine living in a time like that. The very name of a person is a reminder of the coming punishment. Every sunrise is a sign of God's patience. Each passing year is a new chance to repent. But instead of changing, that civilization sank even deeper into evil. The world that was once full of wisdom became filled with violence and corruption. According to Genesis 6:5, the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great on the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. But God's patience has its limits. And that limit was tied to the life of Methuselah. And when the countdown ended, it happened. In the year 1656 after creation, Methuselah died at the age of 969 years old. And in the same year, just as his name had indicated more than 9 centuries earlier, the mighty waters of the great flood poured down. That was no accident. It was the exact fulfillment of prophecy, the declaration of God, that was passed down from generation to generation. The death of Methuselah marked the end of the period of grace. The countdown had finally reached 0. But before he finally passed away, Methuselah fulfilled the most important mission of his life, to pass on all the knowledge and wisdom he had gathered for almost a millennium to his grandson, Noah, the man appointed by God for the most important task in human history. But why did God need to do that? Why not just punish evil, but actually change the very design of man? What was the threat so great that it required such a radical step from the Creator? When God declared, in Genesis chapter 6, verse 3, that man would only live for 120 years, He didn't just set a limit. This was a divine change in the very code of life itself, a sort of divine reprogramming of humanity's abilities. It wasn't a random choice. This was a careful step to prevent humans from rising to a level of power almost equal to God. The long life that was once a symbol of wisdom and grace gradually became a weapon of evil. Think about it. A modern dictator can wreak havoc in just a few decades. But in the time before the flood, an evil leader had hundreds of years to plan, develop, and perfect his wickedness. During those centuries, evil didn't just grow, it was refined. It became sophisticated, deceptive, and more organized, a silent virus that spread through societies until the whole world was filled with violence. Corrupt leaders established dark dynasties that lasted for centuries and destroyed the morality of entire civilizations. The long life that was once considered a blessing became a curse because it gave time for evil to deepen in the hearts of men. But more than the violence, the real problem was the defiance against God's power. Despite this, the antediluvian civilization before the flood reached a level of wisdom and technology that almost destroyed the balance of the entire world. After hundreds of years of experimentation and study, it is possible that they developed mechanisms capable of altering the very laws of nature created by God. This was a time of knowledge without wisdom, science without fear of God, and technology without morality. The entire society began to believe that they were equal to or even greater than the Creator, a repetition of the sin of Adam and Eve, but now made thousands of times worse. So when God declared that man would only live for 120 years, it was not just a simple punishment. It was a divine intervention, a precautionary measure to prevent the total destruction of humanity. By shortening man's lifespan, God cut off the ability of evil people to spread wickedness for many centuries. At the same time, he also limited the accumulation of dangerous knowledge that could be used against him. It's like he installed a divine antivirus in the human system, a holy safeguard against unchecked power. And from then on, every generation had to start over. There was less time to build, learn, and progress. But it was enough to learn how to live together with purpose and faith. However, this change in the human race did not happen suddenly. It was gradual, careful, and deliberately carried out by God over many generations after the flood. Noah still lived for 950 years, but his children and grandchildren gradually lived shorter lives. It was as if God was adjusting the new software of humanity, searching for the perfect balance. Enough time to learn, but not enough to accumulate great evil again. This change served as a reminder to every generation. A long life is not a right, but a gift from God. But how exactly did this genetic reset work? And what was its effect on the following generations? The Great Flood was not just a judgment. It was the greatest genetic reset in human history. When the waters finally receded and Noah set foot on dry land again, Noah lived for 950 years, but the generations that followed gradually lived shorter lives. It's like a mathematical pattern with God's signature. Sem, 600 years, Arphaxad, 438 years, Shelah, 433 years, Eber, 464 years, Peleg, 239 years, Reu, 239 years, Serug, 230 years, Nahor, 148 years, Terah, 205 years, and Abraham, 175 years. This is not an accident. This is a purposeful pattern, a calculated change that shows the hand of God reshaping humanity. Each generation lived shorter lives than the previous one. It's as if God was gradually tuning the clock of history to fit his plan. This change is not just symbolic, it has a deep strategic meaning. It accelerated the flow of the plan of salvation, and it hastened the fulfillment of the Messianic promises that are yet to come. It is also a mechanism of purification. Through shorter lifespans, the genetic and spiritual evil inherited from the time before the flood no longer spreads as much. Each new generation was given the chance to start again, a new hope, a new path toward salvation. It's like God rebooted the human system. A new version of humanity that's safer, more balanced, and more controlled. The change in a person's lifetime isn't just physical. It also shifted the balance of power in society and families. In the time before the flood, only a patriarch could live for centuries and directly influence dozens or even hundreds of generations. But when God shortened the lifespan of humans, the ability of anyone to live fully was also gradually reduced. This prevented cruel rulers from building thousand-year dynasties of evil. And behind all of this, there is a deeper reason. This reprogramming paved the way for the coming of the Messiah. The planned shortening of human lifespan created an exact timeline. It's as if God himself set the clock of humanity to align with the prophecies about Christ. Because each generation moved faster, the promises to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were fulfilled at the right time, and the bloodline that would eventually lead to the birth of the Son of God was gradually shaped. But God's design goes even deeper than this. There is a hidden pattern, a divine code written in the very genealogy or lineage record of the Messiah. The list of names in Matthew 1 is not just a record of ancestors. Every name, every father and son relationship has a supernatural logic that reveals the precise and unseen design of God guiding each generation. The world is quietly being prepared for the exact moment of salvation. Matthew arranged the genealogy of Christ into 3 groups of 14 generations. From Abraham to David, from David to the exile in Babylon, and from there to Jesus. Behind this is a careful numerical design that points directly to the identity of the Messiah. The number 14 was not chosen randomly. In the Hebrew language, the name David has a numerical value of 14, which connects the entire genealogy to the most famous king of Israel. This means that each generation has a symbolic connection to David, and on a higher level to Christ himself as his heir. But this isn't just about numerology. The 3 groups of 14 generations represent divine completeness or perfect fulfillment according to God's design. The 3 numbers that symbolize holiness and perfection are multiplied to make 42, a number repeated in apocalyptic prophecies as a sign of God's appointed time. Each generation in that genealogy went through war, plague, exile, and disaster, but the Messianic bloodline remained alive. If we talk about the possibility of a single family line existing for 2,000 years without being broken despite all the tragedies, it would be impossible without the hand of God. Notably, Matthew intentionally left out several kings of Judah, Ahaziah, Joash, Amaziah, and Jehoiakim, from the list. This is not a mistake or something overlooked. This is the deliberate design of God. because those lines carried curses that came from the house of Ahab and from the marriage of Athaliah, the daughter of Jezebel. In this way, God purified the line of David, like a holy genetic editing, to ensure that the line that would produce the Messiah would remain pure. And despite disasters like the exile to Babylon, the record of David's lineage was not lost. While most families of Israel lost their records and identities, the house of David, the line that would produce Joseph and Mary, remained intact, carrying the most important record in history. This wasn't just human discipline. It was like a heavenly backup file preserved by God Himself. It's proof that even in the midst of the world's destruction, His plan is never broken. And the most amazing part of all this is how God's code is directly connected to the path He has set. A person's lifespan is limited to 20 years. By shortening the lifespan in a careful way, He created the perfect rhythm for 42 generations. The exact flow that will bring the fulfillment of the prophecies at the right time. If the patriarchs lived for 900 years, there would be too few generations. And if only 30 or 40, it would be too many. So between 70 to 120 years, God carefully calibrated the clock of man, a genetic timer that would lead to the most important stage in history, the birth of the Messiah. This timeline is not just for history. It shows that every decision God made thousands of years ago continues to resonate until today. It shows that His plan is not only eternal, but also precisely calculated. The limitation of human life is not a punishment, but a cosmic strategy, a careful design to establish a protocol. It protects humanity from itself and accelerates the fulfillment of the plan of salvation. From Adam, the first being, to gaze upon the vastness of God's creation, to the pre-flood civilization that amassed power almost dangerously. From Methuselah, the guardian of a prophetic clock that lasted 969 years, to the genetic reset after the flood that reorganized humanity. Every step of history is deliberate. The genealogy of Jesus is not an accident of fate. It is part of a plan arranged by God over thousands of years, where every generation, every birth, every decision is carefully aligned with the destiny of salvation. And now, we who live under the allotted 120 years have a short but very important time to fulfill God's purpose in our lives. Each day is a gift from heaven. Each year is a unique opportunity to align our steps with the Creator's plan. The same wisdom that shortened man's lifespan to protect the world is also the one that gave us enough time to know Him, accept salvation in Christ, and leave a legacy of faith for the next generations. So even if your life is shorter compared to the ancient patriarchs, it is exactly the length of time you need to fulfill God's plan for you. The plan He set even before the world was created, the limit of 120 years, is not a punishment, but an instrument of grace, a carefully measured period of time for you to know the Creator, accept salvation, and fulfill your destiny. Every sunrise is a gift from God, every year a new opportunity. To walk within God, His eternal plan, the same hand that arranged the DNA of humanity is also the one who decided the exact time of your birth. In this time, in this generation, with a unique purpose that only you can fulfill.